The New York City mayoral race is heating up, with former Governor Andrew Cuomo having thrown his hat into the ring to replace the scandal-ridden Eric Adams. And while Cuomo leads in the polls, it feels like many New Yorkers have seemingly forgotten why the embattled former governor resigned from his office in the first place. It all came to a height during the pandemic, when Cuomo was exposed for his alleged cover-up of COVID-related deaths in nursing homes. At a time when hospitals were overflowing with COVID cases, Andrew Cuomo required nursing homes to accept COVID-positive patients. And when the disease spread rampantly throughout these facilities, he hid the data. But it didn't stop there, because at the same time, multiple women came forward with sexual harassment allegations against the then governor. And following nationwide outrage, Cuomo, despite claiming no wrongdoing, resigned in August of 2021. Nearly 4 years later, Cuomo is, according to the polls, the favorite to be the next mayor of New York. But his critics have refused to back down or be silent, including whistleblower Lindsey Boylan, the first woman who came forward with sexual harassment allegations against the then Democratic governor. And she joins me now. Lindsey, thanks so much for coming on Mehdi Unfiltered. Appreciate you having this conversation that I'm sure is not a conversation you wanted to have in 2025.
It's not a conversation I wanted to have, but it's an urgently important one. So I'm happy to do it.
We live in an era where these people just don't go away. Donald Trump is president. Again, you were the first whistleblower and accuser to come out against Cuomo's inappropriate behavior. It takes a lot of bravery to be the first one to speak out, especially against a figure who was gaining so much praise, at the start of the pandemic at least, for his leadership. What motivated you at the time to break your silence at that moment?
Two things, really. So I had, people would constantly ask me, what is it like working for Andrew Cuomo? And before I ever came forward, I would say things like, well, he's just like Donald Trump. And that was as far as I went, which is kind of prescient given where we are right now. But ultimately, I started saying more and more about the difficult working environment, but I didn't say anything on social media about sexual harassment. And then all of a sudden, a young woman reached out to me who could be a much younger sister, and she told me that he had sexually harassed her. And even though I hadn't said the word sexual harassment, the stories she was telling me, I knew they were true because the same thing had happened to me. And I frankly felt responsible for it happening to her because she worked for the governor after I did. And because I didn't somehow find a way to stop this monster, she had this experience. And I felt horrible. And so that happened. And then within the space of a few days after this conversation with a much younger woman than I, his name was being floated in the news for a potential attorney general in a Biden administration. Yes. So you know what that means. That's people putting a balloon out there to see if there are problems that are going to come forward. And so those two things, I couldn't not say anything. And I didn't tell anyone that I was going to start tweeting about this. And I just did it because I couldn't be me and not do it. And as difficult as it's been, I've never regretted the decision to do that.
So it's interesting, so you never regretted it. At the time, what you did set off a wave of voices, and it did partly lead to him resigning.
Yes.
Even though he says he did nothing wrong, he did resign in disgrace. What was your initial response then, when you heard for the first time that maybe he might be about to throw his hat into the ring for mayor? He might be mounting a political comeback.
I knew he would try to come back.
Always, over the last few years.
It's like watching a Halloween movie. The script is the same every few years. There's a new film, and he just keeps coming back with the horrifying, music and everything. It truly is like that for me. But I knew he would try to come back. He doesn't have any other interests. He doesn't have any personal hobbies to speak of that are of importance to him. He's got a small cadre of people around him who've never done anything else with their lives. So I knew he was going to...
It's all about politics and power.
It's all about power, really. And this was the business that he grew up in as a Nepo baby. And so this is the business he has power in. So I knew he would try to come back. I think I and others were initially surprised because he doesn't like New York City. Most of his career, even in power as governor, was really trading off New York City's interests.
He even said recently that I've had a better job title, governor, than mayor, which is a bizarre thing to say when you're running for mayor.
Well, he's only doing it because it's the most readily available job, and there's a perception that the current mayor can't go on, particularly when he threw his hat in. And so he just wanted a new title. And frankly, he really just wants to get back to his former glory. He'd much rather be governor. I think as you said, he said this, but that job is not available. And he's always been about finding his way back to power.
He also has name recognition, obviously, in New York that he wouldn't have
Huge.
in LA or San Francisco. Recent polling from Data for Progress shows Cuomo leading in the New York mayoral race. He's at 39%.
Yeah.
How is he polling so well? Is it just name recognition? Did New Yorkers suddenly forget about all the scandal? Liking this video? Then don't just watch. Hit like, share, and subscribe. And tap the bell so you never miss a video or live show. But if you want early access to exclusive content, then you have to head to zeteo.com and subscribe now. You'll be supporting fearless, independent journalism.
Yeah, I think it's two things. 100% name recognition is a gift to most people, even if they have a complicated, at best, that's the euphemistic way to say it. But he's also got, at this point, a PAC, Fix the City, that's really there purely to support his candidacy, spending millions upon millions of dollars at this point doing TV ads. Now, the Data for Progress poll was, I think, a few weeks ago, but he has 100% name recognition. And we've got, in my view, 5 very good candidates, all current electeds, that can absolutely do the job, and absolutely several of them gaining momentum, maxing out in some cases for public matching funds, but they haven't started spending a lot of that money. And typically, as you know, and most of your viewers probably know or have heard of, you try to spend the money up in the final stages of this case, a primary or ultimately an election, so that you can really remind people to get out and vote for your candidate. Well, they've got to do a bit more in this case because you're running up against someone who has 100% name ID, and they've got to build that. So I think you're going to start seeing some of those other candidates, whether we talk about Zoran Mamdani, we talk about Brad Lander, we talk about
Well,
Zelma
that could help
Myrie.
him because they all just fight with each other and he...
Yes. There's
no clear alternative.
The one thing I would say is we do have ranked choice voting.
Yes.
And so I think in this case, a lot of us aren't familiar with it. This is our second round in the mayoral elections having ranked choice voting. I think if you had spoken to people at this moment in time in the last mayoral primary, we wouldn't have said Eric Adams was going to be mayor. There was a lot of excitement around other candidates, but it was this ranked choice voting system that made it possible for him to get to office in one of the later rounds. And so I don't think it's a bad thing to have these other candidates when we have ranked choice voting, particularly if they're going to spend, let's say, a good percentage of their share of voice bringing down this monster, and to your point, reminding him of all the bad things he's done, not just his name recognition.
Are you endorsing anyone in the race?
I have basically endorsed 5 of the candidates, and because of you get 5 votes in ranked choice voting.
Who's your top choice?
I would say at this point, I don't have a top choice. As we get closer to the primary, I have 2 candidates that I think have the potential to go the distance, both in terms of name recognition and policy and fundraising. Right now, I'm keeping it to 5, but I'll probably introduce what I view as the ranking of that right near the primary. But I'm excited to see them spend their money, and none of them really have, aside from on staffing.
Back in 2021, you wrote about your experiences with Cuomo, and you said Governor Andrew Cuomo has created a culture within his administration where sexual harassment and bullying is so pervasive that it's not only condoned but expected. His inappropriate behavior towards women was an affirmation that he liked you, that you must be doing something right. He used intimidation to silence his critics. Do you believe that if he is elected to the mayoralty, his administration will be any different from when he was governor? Has he changed at all?
No, I mean, I
learned
know,
any lessons?
He's euphemistically said that in his private meetings with people, and he alluded to that in his 17-minute screed of an opening video. But he hasn't learned anything. I mean, he's talking about potentially suing one of his young victims who he sought gynecological records for defamation. He's spent almost $60 million at this point of taxpayer money fighting against the various people who he's harmed, including the women. He has continued to say he did nothing wrong, even though he resigned. And in the case of nursing home families, yes, he's lied to the COVID Select Committee about his role in misleading around the numbers of deaths in nursing homes. He hasn't changed a thing. And the only thing he does now is try to smear anyone who holds him accountable, and that's exactly what he did before.
You mentioned that he was up for a potential AG job. Even before that, people were talking about him as a possible presidential candidate. If you remember, during the pandemic, he was seen as the leader that the Democrats needed. He was standing up to Trump, if you remember. Now that Trump has been elected to a second term, he's going after his political enemies. It looks like Eric Adams is basically a political hostage of Donald Trump's right now. There's been accusations of a quid pro quo with Adams and Trump. Do you think Cuomo will stand up to Trump?
Absolutely not. I mean, even the New York Times, which I think is less likely to air dirty laundry of powerful politicians like Andrew Cuomo, they endorsed him even when they said he was a bad guy in his last third round election. Even they have said, does this guy really stand up to Trump? And he doesn't. And you've probably seen the latest news of yesterday that the COVID Select Committee chair has passed along a criminal referral, and now the Oversight Committee chair has passed along a criminal referral for prosecution of Cuomo. A lot of us have been saying from the beginning that the problems we have with Eric Adams being potentially co-opted by a Trump administration to do his bidding are that much worse with Cuomo. It's not just this potential COVID Select Committee criminal referral for lying to Congress, which he did. It's also the DOJ ruled that he sexually harassed 13 women, which is actually more than the original findings of the Attorney General's report as well as the State Assembly investigation. These are all things that
you think Trump could use against him, and
he could
Cuomo
use any.
would,
I mean, has Trump shown any
Oh, yeah.
reluctance to use the most I mean, listen, we have people in El Salvadorian prisons who don't have any proof. I think judges have ruled against them, and he won't fail to do that in Cuomo's case. And frankly, way back when, Cuomo and he were buddy-buddy. Trump has donated to his campaign. Trump said in the last few weeks that he'd be a fine mayor, something along those lines. We all lose when these two guys go back and forth and banter.
So a lot of what you're saying is pretty obvious.
Yeah.
And yet, two major New York City labor unions, the Hotel and Gaming Trades Council and the local 32BJ of the Service Employees International Union, the SEIU, have now endorsed Cuomo for mayor after backing Eric Adams in 2021. Sure. These are the same unions that called for him to resign over the sexual harassment accusations.
Yeah.
How important are these endorsements for him, and how do you explain them?
I mean, he misspelled both of their names in his press release about the leaders of these respective unions. I speak to folks in the labor community, as do the candidates that I'm supporting currently, and all of them have said everyone who's endorsing him, not everyone, but a lot of the people endorsing him are afraid of him, and they want to be on the good side of a potential Andrew Cuomo mayor rather than the bad side. So he's building his house of cards off of these polls. He's building it off of his inevitability around money. Well, he didn't get public matching funds this past week, and he sent a mass email out about it. I have my own thoughts about why he sent out a mass email rather than sending it to the people he needed more information from. But I'm not concerned at this point about the leaders supporting
What about
him.
Democratic electeds who are also doing 180-degree U-turns?
Yeah.
You've got Richie Torres, who once called on Cuomo to resign, now endorsing him. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who also called for Cuomo to step down, told New York One News that it's up to New York voters to decide if he should get a second chance to serve. Other members of Congress have also switched their position on Cuomo. What's your response to that?
I mean, I think they're cowards. I think we are in a moment in this country where we have a lot of cowards in office, and that's why it is so appealing to see people like Bernie Sanders and AOC get out there and do something different. I've never been particularly enamored with the job that Richie Torres is doing, but when we talk about our senators, Senator Gillibrand you mentioned, or even our minority leader, Hakeem Jeffries, both of them have kind of gave mealy-mouth statements saying, well, it's up to the voters. Well, they're cowards. And
show leadership. I wonder whether
bad.
it's worse than, the cynic in me wonders whether it's worse than cowardice. Is it cynicism on their part, which is they were always fine with him to begin with, and now that enough time has gone by, they can go back to being fine with him?
You know, I try not to think too much about what cowards are doing internally, but what I will say is the Democratic Party is historically unpopular right now. And that's not because they haven't chosen to support one particular policy over the other, although they've made some really unpopular decisions in the last few months, few years. It's because no one thinks they believe anything they say. And so to me, is it personally hurtful? Yeah, but there's a much bigger global national fight, which is it's the same, the one that I'm and we're discussing is They are willing to keep themselves comfortable, keep themselves out of the line of fire,
Yes.
just to keep their jobs, and it's gross.
And you're right to draw the global and national parallels. But I also, as a non-New Yorker,
Yeah.
sitting with you in DC while you're here from New York, I got to say, and I said this to Cynthia Nixon recently, there is something weird about New York, one of the bluest cities in America. And if Cuomo wins this century, 4 of the last 5 mayors will be Giuliani, Bloomberg, Eric Adams, and Andrew Cuomo.
Yeah. I mean,
that's not a great reflection of New York voting preferences.
Tammany Hall 2.0.
What is your message, final question, to New York primary voters who are thinking, maybe I'll give Cuomo another chance?
He hasn't changed a bit. He lies about the truth. We saw that in everything from what he said in the COVID Select Committee. You'll never know how bad it is until it's over, because he'll be lying to you about the numbers and the reality, and he'll surround himself with bullies. And you have much better options. People say, what's out there? I have 5 good candidates for you. And in ranked choice voting, you need to choose 5 good apples. Those 5 good apples, not in any particular order, are Zoran Mamdani, Brad Lander, Zellner Myrie, Adrian Adams, and Jessica Ramos. They're all current electeds. They're all working hard for votes, and they all have a chance to win. And I hope you get out there and support them. And they're going to get out there and make sure you know who they are.
Yeah, it's not like Trump versus Kamala Harris, where it's just one or one. You're saying there's
No.
multiple options. Lindsey Boylan, thank you so much for coming on the show. And thank you
so
for
much
continuing to
having
speak
me.
out. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Did you like this video? Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel and turn on notifications. For exclusive content and to support our independent, unfiltered journalism, head over to zeteo.com. Your support matters.